Welcome to another episode of Southern Arizona's Nonprofits, the superheroes impacting our community. We're broadcasting live today on the Tucson Business Channel, a division of Mark Bishop Media, from the Stewart Title corporate offices on Broadway in Tucson, Arizona. This show is brought to you by SCIP, SSCIP, the Social Service Contractor Indemnity Pool. They've been insuring nonprofits like ours since 1987. And I'm Barbara McClure, the Executive Director of Impact of Southern Arizona, host of this show. And with me today are two ladies at the helm of local organizations reaching out to help children with literacy and more. I imagine our listeners likely have wonderful memories around books of their youth, perhaps a favorite character or a storyline, where you may have learned something important or traveled off to a faraway land or galaxy, or developed your sense of empathy, even though you didn't know what that word meant at the time. Books are very important to child development, yet are oftentimes scarce. Please join me in welcoming two women working to solve that and other issues. With me is Linda Laird, coordinator of an organization called Books for Classrooms. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you so much for having me today. We're excited to be here and tell you what we're doing in the schools.
Well, thank you. I think the listeners are going to love to hear what you have to say. And also I have with me Ashlie Counts-Jenkins. She's the president, the new incoming president, because the fiscal year just started, for Assistance League of Tucson. Welcome.
Thank you, Barbara. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm so excited to share my passion about Assistance League with your listeners.
Great. I know you're both very passionate about what you do. That's the fun of this, being in the nonprofit realm. We have a lot of good work we do. Well, Linda, why don't we start with you, and you can tell us some about your organization. I know I just learned about your organization not too long ago, and you have accomplished quite a bit in a short time, your group.
We have. It's amazing how much the community has helped us get started. We started in 2019. Some of us were standing on a corner with signs, picketing with teachers in support of them, and we kept hearing they didn't have books. And that concerned us a great deal. So we went back to Green Valley, where we're from, just a bunch of little old ladies trying to figure out what we could do that was immediate, impactful, and simple. And we decided it was books in their classrooms. So we ask ourselves three questions. Are there books about diversity? Because we felt that if children were going to have the books, they should be able to see themselves in books. And we've come to be very passionate about that all children should see themselves in books. And the second question was, do teachers want books? Oh, yes. We found that was certainly true. And the third question was, will the communities help us in providing books? And the community has helped. We've had enormous help from just getting started. We had the county superintendent giving us direction and advice and help. And the community foundation was amazing with giving us startup money, and we got a nice boost from the United Way, because that was an important thing to have. And then COVID hit, and it allowed us to become high-tech little old ladies.
What fun.
All of us now work from our own homes, and we do all of this pretty much online with Zoom going to the schools. So it's been an amazing process, and I have learned so much from children's books. They aren't what they used to be.
Oh, I imagine that's so true. Not Spot and Jane and who was the little boy? Yeah, it's so true.
Dick
and Jane and their little dog Spot. That's true. Yeah, you're right. They're not anything like that anymore. I hadn't even really thought of that.
But that's that's kind of why we got started when we discovered that. Unfortunately, due to lack of funding, Arizona's dead last in the United States in expenditures on teachers' salaries, administrative salaries, mental health services, and per pupil funding. How do you expect the next generation to be good citizens without a good, solid classroom library to read from? So the administrators really have a tough time. For instance, the legislature this year didn't settle funding until March. Well, school started in August.
Right.
So they didn't know what they would have for funding, which means that if a bus transmission costs $6,000 and you can't get the kid to school without it, you're going to put it in that. And it happens that books and bus transmissions are in the same pot of funding.
Oh, that's interesting.
So for a decade, books have been, to some degree, not available. And that it has led to there being very few books in classrooms.
That's interesting. Now, are you supplying classroom or school libraries or classrooms directly by grade level?
School libraries have a bit of funding depending on the school district. If you're a rural school district, they may have no funding at all.
Sure.
And librarians almost don't exist. They have library aides.
Oh, that's
which
different.
are not quite the same in training. So we are providing supplemental books. Curriculum is not something we're involved in at all. That's the school board's responsibility. But we do know that surrounding children with books leads to them becoming better citizens and going further in school. If children read even 20 minutes a day and get to choose their books, they're hooked. Sure. And we just see that over and over. And the scores are going to go up.
Nice. And I think you're right. When a child has an opportunity to choose the book, then there's a little more interest in even getting started in it. When I was young, I didn't enjoy reading. But I think you're right. Part of that is because you read whatever was available. And later in life, I got into some books, but in the very beginning, there wasn't anything that was interesting to me. So that is a neat way to look at it.
Right. And when you see yourself in a book,
that's important.
That is amazing, especially with disability and to a large extent with women. There are amazing women that we don't know about.
Yes. And you're right. I think in my generation, there were really when you did biographies, I think maybe it was fifth grade, there were very few women to do biographies about, unless it was Lindbergh, or not Lindbergh, who was it, flew the female pilot.
Oh, that was Amelia Earhart.
Yeah. That was it. Other than that, it was mostly men, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was for me, because I remember I had the same fifth grade biography that I have to do, and I did mine on Grandma Moses because there wasn't anybody out there at the time. It's you're right. I mean, there are very few books. There are more now, but there's not very many about women pioneers or women in different, like in the STEM areas. There's more now, but
in the last few years they're coming along, but particularly with the cultures that are becoming even more important in our country, only 5% of the books that are published each year contain or have authors that are Hispanic.
Oh gosh, isn't that interesting?
It's 1% for Indigenous.
Sure.
And it's, I think, 11% for Asian American, and a little bit better for Black. But by golly, 27% have animals.
Right. Because everyone can relate to those, I suppose.
Well, that's a theory, but
Yeah.
it's hardly equitable.
No.
So we work very hard to find those books and make sure that the kids get those so they see themselves.
And are you were, I think kind of tongue-in-cheek saying a group of little old ladies got this put together. And I think of Green Valley as primarily a retirement community. Is that true? Do you find most of the people that are working with you are retired educators or
Absolutely.
or retired professionals?
Green Valley got started as a retirement community for teachers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it still feels that way. But we also have, of course, Sarita, which is very close, which is family. So it's becoming a nice mix in our part of the valley.
Very nice. Well, I want to catch up with you more on that, but I also want to welcome Ashlie and introduce her and her nonprofit. So, Ashlie, I know I'm from Pasadena, so in California, Southern California for our listeners, and I grew up going to the Assistance League thrift shop in Pasadena with my mother. Yeah, so Assistance League has been part of my life in that respect for a very, very long time. So maybe you could tell the listeners who haven't even heard of Assistance League kind of what it is nationally and how many chapters there are.
I'd love to. We were founded in Los Angeles in 1912. We just had our 100th anniversary a couple years ago, so I think it was 1920, the year the women got the vote.
There you go.
That's how I remember it.
That was another way we were kind of behind in times, wasn't it?
Exactly. Thank you very much. And it was founded initially by two women who saw the need after the influenza pandemic and after World War I. And they saw the need in their community, and they wanted to do something about it. So they started a chapter there, and that one is still in existence today. That the original chapter, we call it the Mother Chapter. And now, today, we have 120 chapters in 26 states.
Wow, that's great.
Across the country.
It's amazing.
So it's migrated east.
I was going to say, has it made it all the way to the East Coast?
It did. It made it all the way to the East Coast. And every chapter is its own 501c3.
Okay.
The national organization, whom I just left a term as on the board of directors at the national level, and which was wonderful experience, broadened my horizons, opened my eyes to a lot of things that I wasn't aware of, and put me in touch with bigger sources of information for nonprofits.
Nice.
Across the country. And I felt that I really enjoyed my time on the board as a director and found that very valuable. But our Tucson chapter here was founded in 1959, and we keep saying, and we hope it doesn't stay true, that we're the best kept secret in Tucson. But we have been giving back to the Tucson community since 1959. So next year it'll be our 65th year.
Oh gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
We've been here. We're very proud of that.
Yes.
And we have long-term volunteers who've been members over 20, 25 years. I'm a 16-year member. Nice. We have new members. And we also, we have over 350 volunteers that help us with our programs.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. And it's uplifting to work with these amazing people and the talents that they volunteer. I mean, none of these people are getting paid for this, and they volunteer all these wonderful talents and skills to our organization. So we're very grateful for everyone that we have.
Does the National have a specific philanthropy that the local chapters follow, or do you all do different things?
We're all required to do Operation School Bell, which is for each chapter it can be something different, so that they meet the needs of their community, rather than the national organization saying, you have to do this. They don't do that. So we determined here in Tucson that our Operation School Bell focus is to provide new clothes and school supplies to mostly Title I schools. We work with 39 schools across 4 school districts, 4 or 5.
Wow.
And last year, we clothed over 4,500 children.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of bodies.
And it's new clothes. It's nothing. And we also have a thrift shop that helps us provide the funds for that. But we hear back from the teachers, the school counselors. They share stories such as one little boy said, well, I can't come to school every day because if my mom has to work, we share shoes. It's sad. I mean, you don't realize the depth of need here in Tucson until you start interacting, with the city and county agencies and the schools that we use.
Sure.
It's just overwhelmingly, it could be very depressing if you let it be that this need exists, and we are doing our best to meet the needs. We were very lucky to receive a grant this year from Angel Charity.
Oh, wonderful.
That will help us close 750 children.
Very nice.
And we just are we're learning about a grant we just got. As a matter of fact, today, right now, some of my members are in a meeting with the city of Tucson. We just got a grant from the city of Tucson to clothe 500 additional children.
Well, that's fantastic.
That's wonderful.
So you plan to do those numbers over and above the 4,000 or 4,500?
It has to be that money from the city is over and above, so that's an extra 500 children.
That's exciting.
So, yeah, and we're excited about it, and of course our program people are like, and ordering the clothes and getting stuff in time because we want to do all this before school starts. We have a big blitz that starts on the 24th of July for the uniform schools because we have a building on Alvernon that's specifically for our programs. And so the school representatives come in, the counselors and people who know the need in their schools, they come in and they pick up all the uniforms for their schools, and we have them all out, and we sit there and what do you need? What size? What's this? What's that? And spend several days getting all those uniforms out to the schools. And then the other way we dress the children is through Target dressings, and we have $105 gift cards that are discounted a little bit for us.
That's nice. The Target does that.
And Target doesn't do it. We have a separate vendor that does that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But because we buy so many,
sure,
then we get a little discount. And so the children and their parents come to the dressings, and they pick out the clothes that they want, which we think is really great for the child's self-esteem.
Right.
Because there's no stigma, that came from somebody, or that's, hand-me-downs, or that's whatever.
Well, that's not the color I would want to wear.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
I don't want a shirt with that design on it, but that's what I have.
Ew, Mom, I hate pink. That's what I heard from my daughter growing up. So.
or that's right. That's what my parents choose for me to wear. Sure.
Yeah. But so the children and their parents get to pick out the clothes, and we dress them from as my mom used to say, because my mom was president of the San Diego chapter of Assistance League years ago, that they dress them from the skin out. So we provide underwear, socks, shoes, a hoodie, backpack, three polo shirts, or 3 tops and 3 bottoms with the uniforms, and then they get appropriate things like that for at Target as well. So we want to be sure that when the child leaves that dressing, that they're feeling happy and enthused about going to school with their new clothes. Because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, getting a new outfit for the first day of school was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Sure, it was for me too.
Yeah.
Did you think so, Linda?
We were an impoverished family.
Yeah.
And my aunt, who was not impoverished, always sent me 5 new dresses.
Oh, boy.
And there was not a prouder little girl that went to school because I had these beautiful dresses.
My mom sewed because we were a Navy family.
Yeah.
So we weren't rolling in the dough, I can tell you that. And she sewed, so I always had new clothes for school, whether she'd made it or, we went to Tom McCann or JCPenney. Remember those places that are not
And
around?
I was going to say my mother also sewed, and I, as a young girl, took up sewing and learned how to sew clothes for myself. But that's another thing that I think is kind of a lost art. I don't know that a lot of parents have time to sew anymore, or that the children learn how to sew. We at Impact several years ago, before the pandemic, we actually had a program where in the summertime we had a group who would come in and teach kids how to sew.
Oh, that's great.
And it was fun. And we even had a group of parents that came in and took a sewing class from us. And the idea was we have a clothing bank, so it's gently recycled clothing. But then the idea was if you found something that you liked and it was close to your size but didn't fit you just right, we were showing these women how to tailor their clothes.
Right.
So that was kind of a fun thing. And then they could have a machine afterwards, to take home and do
Oh,
that.
really? They got the sewing machine too.
Yeah. Well, because they were not super expensive, just the basic machine.
But still.
Right.
No,
But
it's a
I'm
great
aware
thing to
that
have.
it is kind of a lost art.
It is. I think it is. 'Cause neither my daughter wasn't really interested in learning how to sew, but because I did, I sewed my own clothes too. Just like you, yeah.
And they look different today too, don't they? I mean, the clothes that we wore, that I wore looked a lot like the things that were in the stores. But today, the things that are in the stores aren't things that I could sew.
No, me either.
So they all have some holes in them extra anyway. So, but I was thinking also your comment about somebody who gets a pair of shoes. And I think, Linda, when you're talking about living in an impoverished family, we do an adoptive family program at the holiday time and adopt out like 300 children that the community comes in. And so each child gets to write a wish list. And, most of the top things on their wish list are a coat or shoes. They're not toys. They're not Nintendos or cell phones, which are the people who interview them, steer them away from those kinds of toys anyway. But I think people don't all appreciate how important a piece of clothing is to a child.
And that's true of books. We experimented this year with a teacher whose school is in a book desert, meaning that the kids will never get to the library because it's too far away. And in the middle of the year, we gave them a lot of books for their classroom. So they had an adequate classroom library. But after in January, we gave them a $200 budget. This is 5 classes of 8th graders, some who had never read anything more than Hop on Pop.
Oh, gosh.
Many who had never completed reading a book. And they had to all work together across their classes to come up with a book list that spent $200 from a wonderful organization called First Book in Washington, D.C. And First Book, then we purchased the books from First Book. So they were selecting and managing a budget and buying books and looking them up online. All of those are important if they're going to be long-term readers. And what the teacher found was that the parents read the books too.
Oh, nice.
And so the parents were really excited. So next year, we're thinking about doing a little free library situation for the parents so that they'll have books to read too.
That's a great idea.
But doing it cross-generationally is really thrilling. One girl came back and her mother had died. Her father was just out of prison, and she was trying to fit into a new family situation. And he was reading her books, and she wasn't sure she could get all of them read. And so the teacher suggested that they take turns reading to each other, and it worked.
Oh, nice.
And they continued reading to each other. That's a miracle.
Well, and what a great way to build a relationship, too, if the father had been in prison and now he has this daughter that maybe he's been separated from. So to bond over a story like that would be really special.
Right. And the girl discovered that he could read. She said she had never seen him read anything. But I want to point out, too, that we do work with the juvenile facility and provide them with books, too, because they have 2 educational groups, one at the jail and then one at juvie. And the youngest child, when we first started, was 8 years old.
Oh, gosh.
So he probably needed some picture books, but they have to be paperback.
Oh, sure. By the jail facility rules, certain types of books.
Yeah, they are considered weapons if they're hardback. So we try to find the niches in the community where we can surround kids with books.
It's so important. We have a program called Hooked on Books, and we provide schools. There are 4 schools that I can remember that we provide about $7,000, I think, is our budget in books to those, and split it up. And sometimes we go to the teachers and say, because sometimes they don't need the books. One teacher wanted a reading rug, where the children could sit down and read books, because she had books in the classroom, but she needed additional things. So it's good to go and ask the teachers what they need as well, which I'm sure you all do. But books, we value literacy as well. And before COVID, don't we all love that phrase? Right? Before COVID, we were able to have the children come to our facility, and we gave them all a book. But
very nice. Well, maybe we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back in just a moment after a word from our sponsor, and we'll hear more about that.
Today's program is brought to you by SKIP, the Social Service Contractors Indemnity Pool. SKIP is a member-owned, member-directed insurance provider with more than 3 decades of insuring Arizona social service organizations for their property, general and professional liability, and auto claim exposures. With an Arizona-based staff of claim underwriting and risk management professionals, SKIP specializes in providing personalized service, affordable premiums, and coverage which meets and often exceeds the state of Arizona's contract requirements for social service providers. For more information, visit our website at www.sscip.org or ask your insurance agent about protecting your organization with insurance coverage through SKIP.
We're back, and this is Barbara McClure hosting Super Impacting Nonprofits in Tucson area. And we're here today with Linda Laird with Books for Classrooms and Ashlie Counts-Jenkins with the Assistance League of Tucson. And Ashlie was just saying that, talking about the books and asking teachers what they needed.
And we found it effective that way. And we have one amazing volunteer who corrals all this information, goes to all the 4 schools, asks all the teachers what they need, finds out what they need. Mm-hmm. We hold a book drive in the spring, and Barnes & Noble helps us out and lets us have a table there, and people can donate books. We ask our members to bring books in and donate books, or if they're too busy, because we keep them busy, we ask them if they want to donate something, and then we go out and buy the books.
Right.
And so we have plenty of, and it's, all elementary school ages. And right. I think you're so right, Linda, about what you said about you have to see yourself in a book.
Absolutely.
You really do. I think that's so important, because as we're all of a certain age here, that you didn't see a lot of women. Well, you don't see Native Americans, and look at the reservations we have around us. And that is, they need to see themselves in books and as heroes and as adventurers and as, whatever they want, their imagination takes them to. I applaud your organization for doing that down in Green Valley. I think that's just wonderful.
Well, we've found that there's a lot of push right now in books for having books that describe agency in children. The immigrant child who comes from China with her family, they buy a motel, and she's the only one that can speak English, so she has to do the reservations, and then she eventually saves it from the big bad developer.
Sure.
And organizes the whole community. And books that help children see that someone with agency who have had the same problem are extremely important. We had one teacher simply break down and cry when she opened her book box because there was a book about childhood diabetes. And she had never seen one, but she had a child who now would be able to gain some agency and see how other kids cope with bullying. Bullying's a big deal in our schools. And
sure.
A lot of the books that we hope we provide our role models for how children cope with them and how schools cope with them, and I think are really quite successful. We tailor each group of books that we give to the individual school. So with the Tohono Nation schools, where we've been working now for 2 years, we have worked so hard to find Indigenous books, and we find that Canadian presses have done an amazing job because Canada has done financial reparation for their
takeover
their
of
schools. No, for their schools situation, because
that's
the
right.
boarding schools were a big problem in Canada, just the way they were here. But a lot of the reparation money has gone to create books. And we are so fortunate because the Canadian presses give us a 50% break.
Whoa,
my gosh.
A great break. Wow.
We have solicited that kind of break from many of the presses and the distributors in the United States. We get Indigenous books from Orca Press. We get Hispanic books from the University of Houston Press, which has been doing children's books for 30 years. We get a wonderful series of British math and history books called Murderous Math.
Oh, fun. I bet a lot of kids love that title.
And Horrible History.
Oh, those are good. That would get you. Yeah.
Oh, they could all relate to those titles.
Yeah.
And of course, First Book, which is a wonderful nonprofit that provides to Title I. We only work with Title I, but we use First Book all the time because the presses donate books to them, and then they provide them to us at 40 to 70% off, that's pretty doggone good, and free shipping. And they will ship directly to the teachers at the schools, which is important to our high-tech organization.
Well, it also saves volunteer labor.
I was going to say, and driving, because if you're far out,
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great that you get such a great discount.
I think, too, it would be fun, because I know the number, but if you would share with our listeners the number of books that you've distributed just since 2019.
Well, and given COVID, because during COVID, we assumed that organizations like your organizations, Impact and Assistance League, needed the funding worse than we did. So we did not apply for grants during that period of time. So really, in the last 2 years, we've put over 47,000 books
Isn't that amazing?
That is.
schools, and that's about 800 classrooms and almost 19,000 students that are seeing themselves in books.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
Linda.
you should pat yourselves
I know,
on
it's
the
like,
back.
woo.
Yeah,
It's amazing,
That
truly.
is so exciting. That really is. Gosh, we have a high school auxiliary called the Assistines, which you may have heard of when you were in Pasadena.
Sure.
And they work with middle school children. They raise money through the year. They have their own governance system, all 4 grades of high school, so freshmen through seniors. They govern themselves. They make decisions with a little adult guidance. They raise the money through a fundraiser, and they determine what that's going to be. Well, I think with a little parent input there too. But and then they determine how they spend those funds. And the only caveat they've decided on was it has to be middle schools. And so they go out to the middle schools, they ask them to submit what they want, and then they purchase the items. They determine how they're going to spend. Let's say they raise $20,000, which for a high school auxiliary is a good chunk of change.
Sure.
To spend. And so they determine how they're going to spend that. And that the auxiliary, which I didn't know about, until I moved here to Tucson. I'd never heard about it. And I thought, boy, I wish I had something like that when I was in high school, because it gives you a sense of belonging in the community. It exposes you to the need that maybe you're not necessarily aware of, because high school, tend to be a little self-centric there. And they're all worried about, going to college and everything like that. But this exposes them to everything. And during the year, they go out to different places, too. They'll work like the car show, the Gregory School car show. Sure. They work as helpers at the Angel Charity Ball. So they do whatever is needed there. So they're out in the community. They hear about, they're exposed to other people and other things. And they learn governance, too, which I think is really a cool thing, because I had no idea about that when I was in high school. Are you kidding? Yeah. And they make the decision about the money, which to me is a biggie.
So are they buying school supplies, or are they just buying kinds of things?
They'll
do they
buy
supply?
musical instruments.
Oh, nice.
They'll buy band things. They'll art supplies. They try to help the areas of schools that receive not a lot of funding from the school system.
That's wonderful.
So arts and music are always the ones that are cut first when there's budget cuts.
Sure.
Right.
And so I know we've given violins and mats for gym and art supplies for the art school for the art teachers, and the teachers are the ones who say what they would like. But then the teenagers are the ones who decide where the money goes, where they think the need is the most. And it warms my heart to see them make what I consider good fiscal decisions, and spend the money where they see, they really understand the need. So.
Right.
Well, and again, it's another opportunity to learn about budgeting.
It is.
Which I was thinking even about your Target cards, for a child to go into Target with $105.
Oh, we have the cards.
Oh, but they know they have that to spend.
That to spend. Yeah.
So then they have to decide, do I want that fancier coat when I could instead get a coat and a pair of shoes, or, and same with the teenagers,
Teenagers
to learn how to budget is
and before
a big
you go
deal.
send them off to college,
Right.
it's not a bad thing to learn.
I think you're right.
Yeah. But that's one program we have. Another one we have is called Assault Survivor Kits. And I think we're the only people in Tucson that do this, that I'm aware of. And if a child, man or woman, has been sexually assaulted, a lot of times their clothes are taken for forensic evidence. And we give them toiletries, something to put on, and something to help restore their dignity, and let them know that, hey, there's somebody out there that cares about you.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That makes such a huge difference.
It does. I mean, we don't ever see the results of what we do. That's one of the things, because we work through the city and county agencies. But to know that we're doing it, even though we don't.
Right.
We can know how many kits we've given out because they've been requested from us by the city and county.
Sure.
But just to know that we're trying to make a little dent in that area. And then the other, we have a teddy bear program, which is near and dear to my heart because I love teddy bears. Right now we work primarily through Banner Hospital and a few other agencies. We previously worked through the TPD and the Piedmont County Sheriff's Department, and I think during COVID something fell away, and that's on my to-do list for this year, is to find out if maybe we can.
We're finally through it, more or less, and so we can kind of get back to normal.
Get more bears out there, but we give teddy bears to children in crisis.
That's good.
And strangely enough, one of our members' daughter, who lives in Minnesota, was in an accident, and her small children were in the back seat, and the EMTs came and the fire department came, and they gave them teddy bears. And she said, this member, I didn't realize how much that helped children through a crisis situation.
Absolutely.
Because the EMTs were sitting there checking out mom, making sure she was okay. And then the other fire department guys were back, consoling with the two children, keeping them occupied. And they had the teddy bears for comfort. And so that was nice to have a personal validation of the value of what we give back.
Sure.
On those teddy bears. And then the other one that I love is called Starting Over Supplies. And we work with now we're working with the city of Tucson, and this is where we have our greatest need right now. So if you want to send in money, please send it to. No.
That's a fair thing.
No.
Sure.
Because the city of Tucson is now able to rehome a lot of the homeless. It's a big increase because they must have gotten some funding and been able to do that. Our increase for Starting Over Supplies, which is we give you what it takes to start a household over. Sheets, pots and pans, cups and saucers, plates, silverware. Think of all the stuff when you move into a bare place, what you need. We don't do the furniture, but we do everything else. Towels, all
linens,
all that
cooking.
stuff.
That's wonderful.
So,
that is.
But the city they have come to us with a lot larger requests than we budgeted for.
Sure.
For this year, because we didn't realize they were going to be able to rehome as many. So if you do want to donate to Assistance League, it's altucson.org, and you can find it on our website.
And we'll post all the contacts too on the page so our listeners can find them. So it's so people can remember that as well.
Yeah, and it's important to know that we work with the city and county agencies. Unfortunately, we can't help people who come in off the street.
Sure.
My experience as a Navy wife has been trust but verify, because sometimes people say there's need and there's really not need. My husband was in the Navy for 30 years, so I volunteered through that life as well. And you hear some stories, and you're like, oh, that sounds horrible, that's terrible, and then you find out it wasn't really true.
Sure.
So that's where the trust but verify comes from.
Sure.
Yeah. But the Starting Over Supplies, I don't know that anybody else in the city does that either.
Now, can you accept gently used items to do that? Like I know people
No,
who
we
are,
like to give
it's
them
all brand new.
But if you have gently used items that you would like to donate, our source of funding, our main source, about 3/4 of our revenue comes from our thrift shop.
Okay.
Which is at 1307 North Alvernon Way.
I drive right by it.
And it's open Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays.
That's great.
But that is, if we take donations, we take any donations. We prefer gently used or in good condition. However, if we find we can't use them, we pass it on to somebody who can. Right. So we're trying to, reduce, reuse, recycle, and not throw anything away if we can help it. Sometimes things are just not salvageable and they do have to go in our dumpster. But most of the times, I would say 90% to 95% of the items that we get donated either go out on into our thrift shop, and we take clothes and household items and furniture and you name it. If we can't use it, we pass it on to several other agencies.
That's great. I think, too, our listeners would be surprised to find out that you can even do some online shopping at that thrift shop.
We have an online store. If you, once again, go to altucson.org and go shop online, we have a great online shop that we started during COVID.
Another technological...
we were forced into it. It was our president at the time, who was a wonderful person, her name is Kim Sparling, saw that we were losing, we thought, it's going to be, we all thought, this is going to last a
3
month,
months.
right? This is not going to last very long. A month, 2 months, that's it, And it kept going and going. She went, we can't afford to lose our main source of revenue. So she started looking around, and she set up this online shop. She's very technologically savvy and got help doing it. And we got up and running in 2019, and we have been online ever since. In the first year, that online shop brought in $100,000.
Wow, that's
which
amazing.
we would not have had any income, any revenue except for grants and donations, other than that $100,000. So that really, really helped us, and we're hoping, seeing the way that online commerce is going, we're hoping this just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding.
Sure,
and it's just. You never know what you're going to see on there either. There's some really cool things.
There are some fun things. I have a dish
There's a cool,
fetish, I guess, a dish problem. I love to collect dishes. So
there's
I noticed there are
purses.
quite a few dishes and fun things.
We get some really high-end purses too. I have to
I
say,
bet.
if you're a purse person, I'm kind of a purse person.
Linda, what are you, other than a book person?
Yeah, we know you.
What's your other hobby, love?
Quilts.
Quilts. Oh, very fun.
So you sew? Then there's that skill that we were talking about, right? Yeah.
No, I made over 1,000 masks at the beginning of COVID with another group in Green Valley,
Sure.
and I made 14 quilts during the first year while I was isolating.
And we had people donate quilts to Impact because I think that same thing happened. You know, isolating and even people who are quilters, you can only make so many quilts for your own home and for your friends and your children and grandchildren. So it's it becomes kind of a fun thing to make and pass on.
That is nice. Yeah. That is nice.
Now, I think one thing probably to mention, because our listeners are all over, not just Tucson, but Arizona, but also other states and globally. So your thrift shop does not ship, though, correct? So you come pick it up? make a
Yeah,
reservation?
generally we ask that you come pick it up. And some rare exceptions, and you have to deal with our online shop manager,
Sure.
who's a wonderful guy. We will ship, but it's only very rarely. But there is, and to give a plug, and I hate, the national organization has an online shop that have linked other chapters who don't have online shops. So they're a congregating platform for chapters, and it's called shopassistanceleague.com. They will ship. All of the chapters that are on that website will ship. And so you will find, if you go to shopassistanceleague.com, you will find amazing things on the national platform for shopping too, because there's they're all over the country, the chapters that are online. So you will find all different kinds of things, which is pretty interesting.
That's great because I collect antique blocks, and I bet I can find antique blocks
Well, you
there.
know, we have an Assistance League in Wichita, which is where she's
That's right.
They have an incredible quilting group in Wichita that I used to belong to.
Yeah.
There you go. That's so fun. Well, there's so many neat things that go on in this community, and I think it's neat that they were able to, like you say, build this conglomerate who can all work together. What a wonderful thing, you know, as we learned through Zoom, just new ways to communicate. But for an organization, a national organization, to come up with that idea is pretty incredible.
It was, and they it took a while, you know, to find an aggregator and all of the technical stuff. But it's up and running now, and more chapters are joining every day. So we've just our chapter decided not to because we just want to keep our stuff local
Sure.
because it's special.
And it's so easy to get to Alvernon. You know, it's not far north of Broadway. What is it? Alvernon and what would you say?
Oh, we're between Pima and Speedway on the west side of Alvernon. It's 1307 North Alvernon Way.
With the blue doors.
Yes.
So that's part of their
great.
logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, I'll make this real fast.
Yeah,
is
no problem.
We, Ochoa Elementary School is a new school that we've added to our school bell program because the Ochoa family is sponsoring the school.
Oh, nice.
So they are providing us with the funds to clothe the entire school.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh,
Isn't
Isn't that
exciting?
an amazing?
That's just
I know
incredible.
Steve Ochoa and his family, whose great grandfather gave the land to the city of Tucson for the school, and he owned lots of stuff in Tucson. They're a very old Tucson family. They contacted us and said, "Hey, let's talk about this." And through this last year, it's involved into their funding, and we're providing every child in that school with clothes.
That's pretty exciting.
Isn't
Are
that-
they a uniform school?
I think they are, if I remember.
Because that would make
right.
it, you know,
it makes it easier.
facilitation-wise, that would make it
I think
simple.
they are
But
a uniform school.
and there's something to be said for uniforms. You know, I wore uniforms for a few years because you eliminate the barrier of
Right.
income,
Yes.
and you know, for style. I mean, I think we had to wear, when you were a senior, I think you could wear colored socks or socks of your choice. But you know, it was back in the days of I tend to date myself, but black and white Oxford.
Oh, well, I had those.
And
I had those.
and simple sheath dresses. So, there wasn't too much you could do to kind of jazz it up except your socks. But it is kind of a nice equalizer in a school and puts everybody on a stable or on a same basis. And so kids, it's sometimes good, but in a big school, it would be easier to clothe a bunch of kids that way.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I think it's important, especially in middle school,
Yes.
because that's when the mean girls start.
Well, they do become a little more, the kids, I used to say to kids in middle school, it's like the triangles have to fit into the triangle spot, and only the circles can fit into the circle spot. And the kids that are in junior high that worry about going to high school, I said, when you get to high school, they don't care what shape you are, because the place you have to plug into is so large that any shape can fit in there. So you'll find it's much simpler. But I think you're right, in middle school, that's when it really becomes, that identity piece is pretty tough.
And it's hard because if you're in a very varied socioeconomic school. I went to 2 different high schools, one on each coast, and very different schools, one on the East Coast, one in DC area, and one in San Diego. And there were definite, cliques.
Sure.
In each high school. So
Well, those are lucky kids this year to get all
I'm so
free
excited for this partnership.
And you have
with
about
Show
3
Up.
weeks to get it done, right?
Yeah, well, we can do it. We can do it.
For those of you who aren't in Tucson, when I moved here, I was kind of surprised because school starts the first week of August, or, a week in because of the temperatures and what have you. So where I grew up, school was another month later. So it's, everything is a little bit different. I did want to, because we're coming to the end of our time, I wanted to catch up with you, Linda, because you have this amazing list of books on your website that's available to the public. And I would love to have you tell our listeners, because, again, being online, people can access it from anywhere.
Absolutely.
And it's so important.
And people do access it from all over the country. And I surveyed those people who get updates last time I did an update, and they're buying books from it, which means it just validates what we're doing locally. But it started because we felt that every book should be read by a retired educator to determine whether it was appropriate for a particular age level and whether it was appropriate for Southern Arizona. So we have okays from educators on all of the books, and they are at grade level. So it's on an Excel spreadsheet, and it's huge. It's well over 1,200 books at this point, but you can sort it when you download it by title, author, category, and the categories are very granular. So Indigenous / social justice / Tohono might be a category.
Nice.
And women / sports might be another category. So if a teacher is needing particular books for particular problems in school, they can find them very quickly. So, and they're also sorted you can sort by grade level. So if you're a 4th grade teacher, you can pull up all the 4th grade teachers. If you secondary sorted, you're going to pick up all the Hispanic teachers, and then you can go from as granular as you want. And it is an amazing list because it covers 14 major categories and the environment, because teachers wanted books about the environment. That's what they told us early on. So we've included that. We include civics because the legislature last year noticed that there's a problem with not having any books about civics. So we've included that as a category. And we included Holocaust because when the legislature determined that they wanted to teach Holocaust at 8th and 10th grade levels. We put together a collection of 31 books, and with the help of PALF, which is our area's unions, gave those to every 8th grade social studies teacher in the entire county.
Wow.
Amazing.
And this summer, we're working on 10th grade, and a collection of 33 books will go to every high school library, hopefully by the time school starts. And we're just really excited about finding these different ways to surround kids with books that are immediate, that they can read, and it fits in with what they're supposed to be learning at school. We also, at the end of last year, put together 1,500 kits for STEM for the 4th through 6th grade school in cells. And so teachers had 6 different lessons that they could just go to the library, check out a box, take them, hand them to the kids. And these kids got to make all kinds of things and do all sorts of science experiments.
Fun.
And they were just using things that are around the house. Now, things around the house, things around your house are not the same as things around the small community homes way out on the reservation. So they didn't have, people don't have access. When your Walmart is 45 miles away and your closest library is 65 miles, you don't have the advantages. So we're working this year to equalize that. We've also put little free libraries in the community centers on the nation, and we're so that those kids are trapped because they don't have devices and they don't have Wi-Fi. We've got them if we put books near them.
That's right. They don't have any distractions.
We're even looking at hopefully beginning to get some books on the buses, because some of them drive an hour each way on buses each day.
Great ideas.
We've also started putting little free libraries and some STEM. We're going to start with some STEM-related things in some of Tucson rec centers that are in Title I areas and don't have the advantages. I've got 2,500 little teeny tiny bits of, what am I trying to say?
Like art supplies or?
No, they're the things that they build with.
Oh, like Legos?
Legos, yes. And one of the banks is interested in helping collect Legos for us.
Oh, won't that be fun?
So we're going to we experiment. When we find an opportunity to put something that will help kids in school, we jump on it. And we're doing so well with the little free libraries. I'm so hopeful that they'll continue.
Well, we sure appreciate all that you're doing. It's not really just books for classrooms, is it?
Well, it's expanded. We do a little bit more.
Well, and it's
65
important.
years, you'll be like Assistance League.
That's right. Exactly.
65 years from now,
Growing.
the legislature's going to start funding books
I
because
hope, yeah.
we'll all start needing them.
There you go. That's a great way to wrap it up. I think that's going to be our goal, to make sure those things happen. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today, and I want to remind the listeners that, of course, we have Assistance League here in Tucson, but you also have them across the nation, so that's pretty cool. And I think that the books in classrooms, it's so great what you're doing locally, Linda, but even the fact that your list is out there and available to not only people in the U.S., but even globally.
Yes.
I think you're both making such an impact on such a grand scale. So thank you for all you do in Tucson, but also for all you're doing across the country.
Thank you.
And thank you both for joining us.
Thank you
It was
for
a pleasure to
inviting
be
us.
here.
Thank you.
It's wonderful.
And our listeners will be able to catch up with you through the contact sheet on the episode. So we'll wrap it up and tell everyone thank you for joining us today. And don't forget to check out these organizations.